Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher. Tonight, a different conversation about returning citizens. We've discussed this issue many times on this program, but it is rare for us to focus specifically on women who have moved through the criminal justice system, incarceration, and are now coming back home. Well, that's where we are tonight. My guests are Prince George's County State's Attorney Aisha Braveboy and Leslie Johnson, Director of Reentry Services and Community Partnerships for Prince George's County. Thank you all so much for talking to us tonight. I know that there is an event that you both want to discuss, and we will get to that in a moment. But first, I want to share some brief facts about this issue. According to an NAACP report, the imprisonment rate for African American women is 2 times that of white women. And the Center for American Progress says that 2.5 million women and girls are released from prison and jail every year. Also, the center says without a sustainable income, these women are vulnerable to housing instability, poverty, and a fundamental lack of life resources needed to successfully re-enter society, which could ultimately lead them toward recidivism and a return to jail or prison. I want to talk about all of these issues. State's Attorney Braveboy, I'm sure in your job that you are seeing more women and girls coming through the criminal justice system in Prince George's County. To what do you attribute that?
You know, the interesting thing about women who are in the criminal justice system is that they have very unique stories. Honestly, there's not one stereotype or prototype of women who you find in the justice system. And I say that because in so many cases, women are really not the ones that want to engage in the criminal activity, right? They are doing it on behalf of their boyfriend, their husband, someone who's supposed to love them, because there's domestic violence occurring. There is, just a level of not having, high self-esteem for many of these women. And so women generally, and, I'm not trying to stereotype, but generally are not prone to be violent. But faced with certain life circumstances, sometimes they engage in aggressive, violent behavior, but oftentimes it's at the behest of someone else. And so they come to our justice system broken oftentimes. They come with a lot of needs, and mainly a need to feel wanted, to feel loved. And so it is very difficult in many cases. We have to do our jobs, we have to prosecute, we have to get justice, but we also want to help fix people while they're going through their period of incarceration or probation if they're sentenced to probation. And often what they need counseling. A lot of what they need is therapy. And so it is very, I think, challenging to address women when they are incarcerated because the needs are great.
Do you believe that the criminal justice system treats them differently, one way or another?
I think they don't treat them differently enough. Does that make sense? I think what they don't do is decide, okay, we have women here. Women have special needs. And I think we can speak frank on this show, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So women, we go through monthly cycles, right? Mm-hmm. Where, biology, does some things to us during that time. And it is
I'll let you say that. I can't say that. I'll get in trouble for saying that.
But so being able to have an environment that understands the biological needs of women, I think, is important. I've been in the prisons where I've seen women who are pregnant. Okay. So the health of that innocent child that is growing within them is important to them because they're the mom. It's important to us in society. I mean, even if you don't care about the mother, which we all should, we got to care about the innocent baby. So the conditions in which they live, being able to ensure that they get their medication, they get the rest that they need, so that their baby is born healthy. I mean, that's important. And then, for those women who have a longer stay, and some have decades in, some of them are going through menopause while incarcerated. Now, Harold, I don't know if your mother ever started fanning at some point.
So let me just say that I am of an age where a lot of my sister friends
Okay, all
and
right.
my sister, so I am wholly familiar
Okay. So
with
could
all
you
of the issues.
imagine,
Yeah.
going through that, or for them going through that, incarcerated?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
it is
mean,
no fun.
it,
No
it,
fun.
you just have to understand that there are things that women are going to need that maybe men don't need, because of biologically, we are different. So what I would say is that yes, there are things that are not equal because the focus has been on men, but there are things that women need that men probably don't need, but women aren't getting because it hasn't been a part of the thinking of the justice system.
Yeah,
Ms. Johnson, you were nodding
I
your head.
agree.
Your thoughts about what she was saying?
I totally agree with what Madam State's Attorney was saying. I remember when I was First Lady of the county, and went and spent a lot of time with the women in our Prince George's Correctional Facility. And I remember hosting an event for them where I had, if you recall, Mrs. Mohammed, and I had Yvette Cade, who you will recall was set on fire.
Yes.
Yes. And we had a big program in the multi-purpose room. We had probably several hundred women in that room. And they began, Miss Mohammed, Miss Cade began to tell their stories, which was very, very emotional. You could hear a pin drop in there and the tears that rolled down the cheeks of those women. And why? Because they could relate to those stories. So many of them had experienced domestic violence in one form or another. And it was not addressed. And that is why many of them were therefore incarcerated at our correctional facility. I also know that based on our conference last year, our Untold Stories conference last year, when we had the women come and speak from the MCIW, which is our only Maryland correctional facility for women, they were on a panel, and many of them discussed the concern that they were in domestic violence situations that never had been addressed. And that's why they ended up in MCIW. They also talked about the fact that they were concerned not only about their own health, but the safety and concern of their children. And so those kind of issues are not sufficiently addressed. The other thing that I think many of the women suffer from who are coming back home is the shame of incarceration at a level that we don't see with men. And I've seen this because I have had many events and I've been involved with many events where men and women who were formerly incarcerated were invited. The men show up, but the women don't. And I think it's because of shame, and they don't want people to know that they were incarcerated. And that poses a lot of issues because they're not necessarily getting the services they need, because they're not seeking them, because they don't want people to know that they were incarcerated. So there are so many issues that are different than our brothers who were incarcerated. The other
Yeah.
issue, big issue, is reunification, because while the women are away, many of them are single family household individuals. They ran their household, and now they're away, incarcerated. And so a grandparent may be taking care of the child, the child's father, it may be a boyfriend or a husband. And then when they come out, they've got to reconnect and start relationships all over again. And there are big issues involved with that as well. And so we see that as a problem. And a lot of these things should be addressed while they are already incarcerated, to prepare them for what is going to happen when they come out. And a lot of times this does not happen.
Madam State's Attorney, let's talk about the event next week, the Untold Stories of Justice Involved Women and Girls Conference. As Ms. Johnson mentioned, this is another conference. The name remains the same. Why that title? Why the Untold Stories of Justice Involved?
Well, let me say this. I'm going to punt that to Mrs. Johnson, because what I did was I gave her the charge to host the conference, because I said, we don't talk about the women. And I had an opportunity to meet a woman who was incarcerated, not from our county, but from a federal facility out west, I believe. And, we talked about sort of her struggle, her story, and we really connected. And I said, wow, I wish more people could hear stories like yours.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, you know what? There's 1,000 stories like mine.
Yes.
And I said, well, I'm going to bring those to light, because we've got women who have real needs, who are in our justice system. And I think people aren't focused on them because those stories are untold. Well,
right.
I didn't say that part. I'm just saying,
right. No, I
everybody knows those stories.
Yeah.
So I met with Ms. Johnson and asked her to, I punted it to her to develop this conference. And then she and a group of women met and they came up with the title.
Well, Ms. Johnson, because I'm going to have to take a break in a little over a minute, and I want people to understand where and the when and the how they can attend, become involved, learn. So let's make sure that we get that information out there right now before I have to take a really short break.
Absolutely. They can go on to our website, pgsao.org. And they will go to the events and they will see the flyer where they can register.
And where is it and what time is it?
Yes, it's at the City of Praise Family Ministries, which is located at 8501 Jericho City Drive in Landover, Maryland. The actual conference is from 6 to 9. We will have vendors and resource vendors available between the hours of 4:30 to 5:50. We will also have refreshments available at that time.
Well, thank you so much. And of course, we will be posting that information on our website. We have a lot more to talk about, and we're going to drill down just a little bit more, but stay with us. We are going to take a very short break. Don't forget, you can hear this in every edition of the Daily Drum Insight segment via podcast on WHUR.com. The Original Quiet Storm with Raheem Devon is next on WHUR. This conversation continues on Sirius XM channel 141 and 96.3 HD2 in just a few seconds. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We continue our conversation about women, returning citizens, and women in the criminal justice system. My guests are Prince George's County State's Attorney Aisha Braveboy, as well as Leslie Johnson. She is the Director of Reentry Services and Community Partnerships for Prince George's County. I want to talk more about, some of these really critical issues. And I think, Ms. Johnson, obviously in the position that you're in with the county, you bring a rather unique perspective, because you served 11 months in federal prison in West Virginia for a corruption case. I want to know from you, what was it like when you first went in? What was your mindset? Did you have a plan?
Did I have a plan?
Yes, yes.
I just had a plan to go forth, and as I always do, to try to help others. And that's what I did. I had the opportunity to do that while I was there.
When you say that, what do you mean by that?
Well, we had a lot of young people, a lot of young women who, to put it plain, were lost. And so I would try to speak positive into them. I would try to train them up in the way I thought they should be. And they accepted the advice that I gave them. I also always try to represent myself well, even there. And the job that I had, I worked very hard at it and was commended at what I did. And so I just used the time in a positive way. I also took many classes within my period of time. Some of the classes I could have taught myself, but I used my time wisely. I took poetry classes, knitting classes. I took classes in how to develop business plans, and did a lot of things like that.
I guess what I'm asking is, and what you've shared with me, I'm not surprised. I'm not. I mean, you, as you said, you were at one point, First Lady of Prince George's County, an educated woman, a refined woman. But certainly on, day one, and this I don't know, and I guess that's why I'm asking.
Mm-hmm.
Was that your mindset the day? I mean, did you just
let me just say this? Let me say this. When I was given the time to spend at Alderson Federal Prison Camp, I never looked at it as I looked at it as an assignment, because what people need to understand is that since 2003, up until that point, I had already been working with persons who were incarcerated by starting empowerment programs and the like at our correctional facility. I had also started under my husband's administration. We opened Leslie's House, the first transitional home for women who had completed their time in the correctional facility. Spent a lot of time there with the women, pouring into them, helping them so that when they came and left the facility, they would have what they needed to become productive members of our community. And so when I then had my own justice-involved experience, I just looked at it as an extension of the work that I had already begun. So that's what I looked at. I saw a lot of hurting women, women who were suffering from trauma because of separation from their children. And so I would speak to them about that. I would hear conversations on the phone, because one of the jobs I had was to clean around the dormitory, and I would hear conversations. And then when they finished, I would try to give them words of encouragement. And also, when I look back on it now, I realized that they needed some parenting skills. They needed some skills in self-esteem. And when I left the facility, I was blessed to teach these things at the Mission of Love Charities Incorporated here in Prince George's County. So, like I said, my time at Alderson, I felt it was just an assignment. I began to see things from the inside that I had already seen from the outside.
That brings me to my next question, and I guess you kind of answered it. What did you learn about yourself? Did that experience change you in any way?
I realized, and a lot of people don't know this, but when I was a young person, I was a very shy individual.
No, I can't believe that.
I was a very shy person. I think I got out of that when I went away to college, attended Fisk University. And so I think I was able to stand on my own. But I guess I showed all of these experiences showed me that I was stronger than I ever thought I was. And I credit God, because I am a woman of faith, and I credit God for that. And I would pray every day. And I was blessed to have my church send me many sermonettes from my pastor, and they would send me letters. And talking about letters, that's something else that I would like to talk about. When I was at Alderson, we had mail calls Monday through Friday. During my entire stay there were probably only 2 mail calls where I did not receive a letter from someone. And sometimes it was from a person just giving me a word of encouragement. I did not necessarily know them. But what I saw was women day after day come up to respond to the mail call and never receive a letter or a communication from someone, and have to go back to their room empty-handed. So I vowed to God and to the women I left behind that I would try to do something to change that dynamic. And so in 2017, I started within the structure of the AME Missionary Society, an initiative which we continue today, which is called Pathway to Healing and Restoration. And we have written to men and women incarcerated all over the country more than 4,500 letters during that time. And so, when a person is incarcerated, a lot of them feel that they are forgotten people. They're not communicated. They don't get a communication, a written letter. And some of these same women never got a visit. So they were essentially forgotten folks. And some of them could not afford to make phone calls, which were very expensive. And so these are some of the things that I saw from the inside.
Madam State's Attorney, in just listening to what Ms. Johnson is sharing, from your perspective as a prosecutor,
Yeah.
I'm sure there are many times when you have seen women who have been convicted, and I'm sure you've said these words to them, and certainly even if you've not said them, it is your hope, I don't want to see you here again. Particularly if the sentence is not a long one. A year, 2 years, whatever. A day is long for me as far as I'm concerned, so knowing that, these women, and sometimes very young adults or girls even, are going into incarceration, what is your biggest worry about them when they come out?
Yeah, oftentimes they are broken when they come in and go in, and my concern is that they'll be even more broken when they come out. That's my biggest concern, because again, I know the stories of women and girls, and it's a lot of family abuse, young women who were abused sexually as children, women who were raped, women who were victims of human trafficking, women who, just never had that father figure to tell them that this is what love looks like, and I know they're not going to necessarily get a lot of those experiences in terms of like support and examples and role models. They may not get that while they're in, because they're around, honestly, a lot of other people who are going through similar issues. So having, counseling is key. For those who I believe have, been able to grow through some of the pain, having those peers who can be credible messengers to them while they're in, I think that's great. But not every woman's going to have that, opportunity while they're in. So really creating more of a space, more of a, I think, holistic kind of nurturing therapeutic environment is important. And, look, when people are incarcerated, they're there for reasons, and some of them involve other victims. And so these, we know that punishment has to be a part of the justice system. We know that, having justice for our victims, that's got to be a part of it too. But that third rail is really rehabilitation. And for women, often they need a lot of therapy. They need individualized counseling. Some need group therapy. And the trauma of dealing with the biology of being a woman, along with everything else. It can be very, it can feel like inhumane for them to be there under those circumstances and conditions. So, I think we have to look at how we house our women differently, the programs that are available for them. And we absolutely need more people to be able to come into the prisons to encourage our women. I mean, I've been twice this year to NCIW, and I've brought women who are in business, because a lot of these women, when they come out, they've got to figure out what they're going to do. So I brought a woman who has a hair braiding business, right? She's like, look, you come out, I'll train you how to hair braid. You can make $80 an hour braiding hair, and it's things like that tell these women, wow, when I come out, someone's going to care about me. Someone's going to give me an opportunity. They have something to look forward to. That level of encouragement is important for them, but they don't get it every day, right? And for me, I'm Prince George's County, and I love everybody, and I wish I could help everyone, but I got to focus on those who have home plans back to Prince George's County. So I know that maybe some of those women living in my county get that. They know that they've got a friend in me, but there are thousands or at least hundreds of other women throughout the state who live throughout the state that don't get that. And I remember last time we were there, we actually ended up meeting with women who weren't just from Prince George's County. Right. And they were asking me, can you please talk to someone from my jurisdiction and tell them to do what you're doing? So they need it and they want it. And these women, honestly, they're less likely, I think, than men. I mean, I think that's just the math to repeat their behavior, especially if, let's say, they are doing so because they were on some type of a substance, whether it's drugs or alcohol. If they get clean, they're likely not going to ever commit a crime again. I mean, that's just the numbers. So if we really invest in them, if we care about them, trust me, these are going to be people who will come and be your best employees, your business owners, people who will actually contribute to your communities. I mean, that's what I know about these women. And I just really feel like we got to do more for them. And that's why we have this conference, because not only are we talking about them, we're talking to them and hearing directly from them.
Yeah.
And they stream into our conference. And then there's also a recorded part where they pre-record a conversation that they will have so that we can hear from them too. So
That's
this is
good.
their opportunity to tell the world what's happening, to them in their lives. And it's so empowering for them. They
Yeah.
still remember the conference from last year, and they're looking forward to the one this year. And this year, we'll also be able to stream into our local jail, which I think is
Yes.
tremendous, because we have women who are either awaiting trial or serving out shorter sentences where they're being held locally, who need this kind of support as well.
Ms. Johnson, when you finally left incarceration, your situation obviously is unique. As I said before, you're an educated woman. You were politically connected. You knew people. So, but with all of that said, what was the first thing that you believed that you needed on your first day of freedom?
To rejoin my family. Was it to rejoin my family? That was it.
Why do you believe that no matter what the circumstances for other women who are leaving incarceration, who are returning citizens, is that the thing, or do you believe that it is specific to the individual?
I think it's specific to the individual, but I think for many of the women, it is to reunify with their children and other loved ones. I think that is a priority for them. Of course, my situation was very different. I was much older, established, retired from 2 positions, had a home, didn't need a job. And that is not the story of the majority of women who come back. And so it is on an individual basis, their concerns, but they have concerns with survival. How are they going to make it? And as I said at the outset of this interview, many women don't want people to know that they were incarcerated. So they don't reach out. They're very skeptical about going anywhere. And so that's a big issue. And that is very different than the men. So, yeah.
Talk to me a little bit more about the specifics of the conference. What will a woman who is attending the conference, let's say in person, what kinds of resources will be there? Who will she
We're going to have about 20 resource vendors. And the resource vendors will be able to address the various issues that women have. So we're going to have a vendor who deals with the whole holistic care of an individual. We will have Employ Prince George's, which would help with finding jobs. We have several mental health organizations that will be there, because as Madam State's Attorney indicated, we have our women coming into the facility, but coming out, who have experienced so much trauma and really need to learn skills to deal with that. So we have several people that would be addressing that. I'm trying to think now of the other. We have so many. We have housing, persons who have housing for returning citizens. We have 2 entities that would provide housing. So there are a number of resource vendors that would be able to help those who have come back, who are coming back to our community.
Will there be lectures or? No,
it's not. I'll explain the format.
Because that's
it's not like that's not how it is.
This is why I ask.
Okay. So the conference is not full of workshops. It's not
Okay.
full of lectures.
Mhm.
We are hearing directly from women who are currently just as involved, incarcerated in a facility. Okay. There, as Madam State's Attorney indicated, their panel will be pre-recorded and played
Okay.
at the conference. Then we will have a panel that will follow them, which will be made up of people with lived experiences and also persons with special expertise to address the issues that the women have talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And then following that, we will have a panel of persons who were formerly incarcerated, and they will talk about their stories. And following them, we will then have experts and lived experience persons to address those. So what we know is that the conference that we have, any event we have, we want people to go away with more information than they came. And so it's not a one and done. Point example from last year. Last year, one of the main points that came out was the need for trauma, more trauma classes within the correctional facility. And that is specifically with MCIW. As a result of that, one of the women who actually works for the Secretary of Corrections, Ms. Twyman, has started several of the trauma classes at MCIW. I believe they're now in their second cohort. They've had one graduating class and they will have another. So these conferences are not just for the sake of having conferences. We want concrete things to come out of these untold conferences.
And if I could,
sure.
One of the things that we have done is for probably the past almost now 3.5 years, I've had a emerging adult program that addresses initially men who were the age of between the ages of 18 and 26, because that's where we find a lot of our younger men committing more violent, youthful type offenses that are dangerous offenses, but we know that they are still maturing and growing. And so while we were able to, give them the appropriate sentences so they're serving their time, we also knew that they would at some point come home. And so we want them to come home stronger and better. And so we started this emerging adult program where we provide virtual life skills training and services to people who are incarcerated, who have home plans to Prince George's County. So they're housing facilities across the state. We do a virtual program with mentors, with business owners, people, everyone, helping out these young men. And I saw how well it was working for them. And I said, now it's time for us to ensure that our women have the same opportunity. So we are now in our second cohort of women. And one of the women who transitioned out, and let me tell you how this program has been great. Last year, we were able to meet a woman who was interested in opening a transitional home in Prince George's County. And she was able to successfully do so. Her first tenant was a woman who transitioned out of MCIW, who was in our emerging adult program for women. And it was really amazing because what these women understood is that we cared about them and we were going to take care of them. We were going to meet them while they were in. We were going to treat them like they're residents of Prince George's County, which they essentially are. And when they come home, we're going to make sure that they have what they need to get started successfully. And so that's why it's important for us to kind of know who these women are, understand their stories so that we can understand their needs. And so there will be more stories like that as we continue. And I will say this, in any role that I'm in, Mr. Fisher, this program will come with me because it is very important to me that we take care of our residents wherever they may be housed in the state, that they know that someone cares about them and that we see them.
Yeah, and Ms. Johnson, the reason why I was asking about, workshops or something like that, because as you said, there will be, I'm sure, women who are attending who are skeptical. It may take them a lot to come out and do this. And I think, and what you were telling me just now is helpful, because it's one thing to see vendors and say, hey, we're over here and you can come on and get these services and whatever. But on the other side, whether it's recorded or live, when you see people who have been through what you've been through, you know the phrase, I don't look like what I've been through. And so when you see people who have been through what you've been through, where you can hear them, where you can touch them, where they can tell you that it's going to be all right.
Yes.
But these are the steps. And so that's what I was asking, because I would imagine that this may also, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this may also be a good event to attend for family members of women who are coming out.
Yes.
Yeah. So let us not, forget that those resources or that day-long or hours-long counseling for this event will give those family members some introspection.
And that's actually a major focus of this year's conference, is that reunification. So thank you for mentioning
parenting and reunification. Yes.
Thank you. We could talk about this forever. Unfortunately, I am out of time, but I will say I wish you both, the best of luck in doing this event, which really works to healing our community at large. So again, thank you so very much. I appreciate your time, Ms. Johnson. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you too.
It's been a minute.
It sure has been. It has
and
been.
Madam State's Attorney, also good to see you as well. We will certainly be in touch. Good luck next week.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
That is the Daily Drum for this Thursday, May 8th. I'm Harold Fisher. Good night.